Good morning and welcome everybody to the Licence Subcommittee hearing for Thursday, 12th of September at 10 o'clock. We are being recorded and viewed live on our Hillingdon Council YouTube. You'll be seen but not heard unless you toggle on and toggle off on your little speakers here. When you are speaking, please toggle on and toggle off. Some housekeeping before we start. Fire alarm. I'm not expecting a fire alarm. If it does go off, it's the real thing. Please leave the way you came or onto my right, and we meet outside the Miller's Tap, which is apt for a licensing hearing. Mobile phones, if you could switch them off, please, and any other mobile devices. Stop sending disruption. Before we move on to the agenda, let me introduce myself. I'm Councillor Roy Chamdale. I'm the chairman of the committee. Assisting me in making the decision today, we have Councillor Kaufman and Councillor Allen. We also have other officers here. We have Liz Penny from Democratic Services, who will be taking the minutes and ensuring I follow procedure. We also have Glenn Egan, our legal, to ensure all the decisions that we make are legal and just. We have other people here. If you could introduce yourself, moving from left to right, and toggle off, please. Thank you.
Steve Dormer, Licensing Officer, Hillingdon Council.
Good morning. Chris Mitchell, Licensing Representative for Simply Fresh Travel Limited.
Janet Gardner, representing the residents.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
No apologies, Chairman.
Okay, any declarations of interest came before the meeting? No interest. Everything is in part one, so everything will be on YouTube and in public. Any matters that have been notified in advance are urgent? None. We have a copy of some photos. Has everybody got these photos? Yeah? Okay, right. Okay, Mr. Dormer.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chairman. You've all had the report bundle and are familiar with the salient points of this particular application, which is a new premises licence application for Simply Fresh in Hayes. May I take the opportunity to provide more of a verbal summary and assist the subcommittee with obtaining the facts in determining the application. This appears to be an application for a modern organic convenience store selling groceries and alcohol pending the outcome of the hearing. The premise was not be seeking to be more of the traditional off-licence that we have seen in that area, which seems to be selling more alcohol, tobacco and small groceries and tobacco products. This appears to be a supermarket or more of a grocery-led premises, which is aiming to sell more a upmarket and organic type of product. They have several other stores throughout the country. They're looking to offer Hayes this type of convenience store with the emphasis on self-service and organic products. They're also seeking permission to sell alcohol alongside the products that they are offering the customers to their shop. The applicant is not seeking to operate past 11 o'clock and will open at 7 o'clock in the morning. There are no other provisions required, such as late night refreshment, despite the initial application indicating that this was going to be required. The representations have been received from 3 residents, none from the responsible authorities or other ward councillors for the area. The conditions and hours are more than sufficient to satisfy the licensing objectives. I can see no other reason not to grant this licence with supporting conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Dormer. Could you just, the opening and closing times, could you just go through them once again, day by day, what they are at the moment, or what the applicant is applying for?
They're seeking to open and sell products, alcohol products, from 7 o'clock, 0700 in the morning to 2300 hours in the evening. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and on a Sunday.
So that's every single day, all week?
That's correct.
And you said we have no representation from any responsible authorities?
None whatsoever, there was no members' inquiries to this premises either.
That's going to be my next question. What about anything, reports on the council website where people can obviously make comments, complaints. Do we have anything from there?
Not relating to this premises.
Okay, councillors, any clarification on what's been presented? Okay, we've now gone to Mr. Pritchard. Pritchner. Have I said it correctly? Mitchner.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do apologise. Mr. Mitchner.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, may I apologise for my rather scary appearance and the lack of formality of dress. Your licensing and democratic services teams have been very kind in assisting me following a fairly major fall that I had in June, resulting in various injuries, for which I sincerely thank them for today. As you've heard, this is an application for a new premises licence to sell alcohol 0700 to 2300 every day in line with the guidelines and your own policy. As you've heard, the original application was 0600 to 2400, but these hours were reduced in consultation with our clients, the landlords and your own licensing officer, Steve Dormer, and the site notices were changed on 30th of July, and the newspaper advertisement on the 31st of July also reflected these adjustments. The site will be a Simply Fresh food store. Simply Fresh is an industry-leading and award-winning operation focusing on retailing of fresh foods and take-out food, and the off-licence is a part of the multifaceted retail offer. The site is located in the major redevelopment known as the Old Vinyl Factory, and as you're probably aware, this is part of the redevelopment of that general area, and is a dedicated shopping site designated as part of the planning approval for that particular building, known as the Boiler House. This, in our view, is a relatively benign application, which under so many other situations would be deemed to be completely so, were it not for the 3 local residents or interested persons who have made representation. No other resident, local councillor or responsibility has made any representation against the application, although I fully accept that the residents are represented by a councillor, which is their right, against this application, and neither the police or environmental health pollution control are here today before you supporting the representations made. It will be a well-run, neat and tidy operation operated by hugely professional operators who have decades of small store operational experience behind them, and the hours sought are in line with the guidelines at 10:15 and with your own policy at 21.5 on page 21, which indicates shops should be allowed to sell alcohol in their normal trading hours. Restrictions, and I'm quoting now, restrictions may be applied, for example, where representations are made indicating the particular premises or patrons of the premises are linked to disorder and or disturbance. I feel it's important to reiterate at this stage that there are no reps from the police in this regard, nor any other local residents, besides those that have made reps, nor from any other responsible authorities. And section 9.15 of the guidelines is extremely important in this regard. I have 9.15 in front of me, but I know that you're an experienced panel. If you wish, I can read it out because of what is going on, or I can just pass it through. So it is that we're here today to address the concerns of Mr. and Mrs. Chapman, Dr. Kainth, and Mr. Douglas. And if I could address the Chapmans first, who suggest that the hours sought are unreasonable and that there are already issues of late-night noise and litter and alcohol.
Sorry, Mr. Mitchner, this is an opportunity for you to make the case for your application. If you look at the agenda, what happens is everybody has say their piece, and then we can discuss what everybody has said through the chair. So this is an opportunity for you just to make your case for your application first of all, not on so much as what petitioners have said.
So when would I?
We get that if you look on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
When we get into discussion led by subcommittee. So that's the opportunity, then we can discuss what each other have said.
Okay.
Thank you.
The fact is we're not opening an off-licence. We're opening a local fresh food store that we would seek to meet the needs and demands of the local residents. And we are here today because part of that demand will be for alcohol, and we have to have a premises licence to supply the alcohol. Otherwise, the development in the area and for the shop would go on without us even being here. I would suggest this hearing is not the vehicle on which to carry forward complaints about a shop opening in the area, particularly one which was possibly insisted on by the council, although I have no knowledge of that. It simply doesn't follow that selling alcohol as part of the offering will lead to street drinking or any of the other problems that have been raised. This is a community food store, something that the operators are well used to, and it will be operated on that basis, and they are dependent in their business of getting the local catchment area on side to survive. They will not tolerate the sort of issues that are the concerns of the interested parties. The application before you is a new application for a community food store, as we've heard, made by professional, experienced, award-winning operators, with no responsible authorities making any representations against it. This is relevant because the guidelines are clear that the reps made, if they are to be supported, must show a causal link to the application sought and be supported by evidence as raised in page 5 of your bundle. And 9.12 of the policy is extremely important in this regard, particularly the last sentence. As indeed is the case of Thwaites at paragraphs 55 and 63. The Act and the guidance are clear that the applicant has the responsibility only to sell alcohol to people of age who are not drunk and to those purchasing for people under the age or influence of drink or drugs. And that is what they will ensure does not happen. That said, the applicant is aware of their social responsibilities and your policy as well as the guidelines, and will strive to ensure that any issues that they may have influence over are addressed. This will specifically include the provision of usable waste containers on the forecourt where they are allowed, and notices requesting customers to leave the premises quietly as per guidelines at 221. Also, whilst these matters haven't been raised specifically by way of representation, all of the staff are individually trained in the sale of alcohol and have to take a written test or a computer-generated test to prove their understanding of the responsibility placed on them when authorised to sell alcohol on behalf of the licensee and the DPS. This authority is in writing per guidelines, and subsequently, at no more than 6 monthly intervals, all staff are retrained, retested in writing or on computer, and then reauthorised in writing to continue selling alcohol on behalf of the licensee and the DPS. A refusals log is maintained at the site, and Challenge 25 procedure is also embraced, with records kept in the refusals book as part of this process when refusals occur. The store also benefits from a comprehensive CCTV system which is recorded and would be made available to the police or responsible authorities upon request. I don't believe anybody is alleging poor operation at the premises, or that what we will be doing is anything wrong, or that there will be issues there. I think there is a general concern of the area and existing matters, which the police are already aware of, and they're not here before you making representation in support of those representations that have actually been made. If I could rest there, sir.
Lovely. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. A few questions, clarifications from me to start off with. First of all, a dress code does not hold any weighting in our hearings. So your comment at the beginning about your dress code, that has no weighting. We do understand why we're here and what we do, and we do give the appropriate weighting for all things, all comments that are made as well. Right, if we could go into page 27 first, please, of your information pack. So it says alcohol displays throughout the store within the red borders. So those will be, we've got what appears to be in the middle of the floor area, 4 rows of shelving. So 3 of the 4 will have alcohol displayed on these. Is that correct?
Sorry, so no. What it means is that the alcohol displays can be moved around the store without coming back to committee to seek approval for sake of argument.
Or minor variation, yeah. But so we go off the plans which are given to us. So what is presented here, what is shown to us, that's what we make our decisions on. It does say quite clearly, alcohol display throughout the store within the red border. So am I correct in thinking, at the moment, your plan is to have those 3 displays holding alcohol?
No, sir. The plan is that alcohol may be displayed at any given time in any particular area in the store, dependent on seasons and seasonality.
So the question is, which ones of those will be displaying alcohol?
there will be a fridge, which will be a dedicated fridge for alcohol. And then after that, the alcohol display, there might be features where, for sake of argument, particularly at Christmas, where there might be end displays and such like, which would not necessarily be there in February.
So I just need to understand, where are you going to actually display them? I understand where you're saying we can display them as and when seasonal. I get all that. But in terms of now, for this application, could you tell me where is the main area where you'll be storing them? The reason behind that is obviously to see where it's stored, have we got adequate CCT coverage, your staff, for example. Will there be floor staff walking around on the shop floor?
One of the conditions that has been offered and accepted is that any areas where alcohol is displayed that cannot be seen from the till will have appropriate CCTV coverage on it. So the answer to that question is yes, but that will be by way of condition, which is a stronger than just a yes. Yeah,
that's the CC. I'm asking about staff. So there will be staff walking the shop floor, monitoring this area, because I do see SS tills. Is that self-service tills?
Yes, sir. I was going through your list of questions. That's why I've addressed the first one. The alcohol display, if you look at in the bottom right-hand corner of the store as you're looking at it, it says food to go. Immediately north of that is a line of fridges going towards the top, and that says...
Sorry, you've lost me. So if this is... I'm looking at it as an A4. So where do you... Oh, right, food to go. I see it.
Yeah, so if you look at it as a landscape, food to go is the bottom right-hand corner. And immediately north of that, for want of a better way of putting it, it says chilled BWS. And then immediately north of that, it says red wines. Do you see on the right-hand wall of the fridge? It's going straight up? Going straight up, yes. Okay. Yes. So that would be, traditionally, that would be the, shall we say, the fixed location of the alcohol. And then, as seasons dictate, that would be increased or would be increased to facilitate any Christmas offers and things like that.
So that's sort of virtually in direct line with, is that your tills further right up extreme north?
Top right-hand corner, as you're looking at it as a landscape, is where the tills are, and then you're absolutely correct. Right in the window are the self-service tills.
Okay, and the dots are where your cameras are going to be placed?
Yes, the circles with the white centres are the minimum cameras. There are actually over 16 cameras, but the circles with the white centres are the minimum cameras, and then there will be extra cameras dictated by the condition that we've accepted, that if any other display is put into place, there will be cameras covering that.
Could you just tell me how these self-service tills are going to be managed?
In the same way that they are everywhere, sir, you'll have a number of tills where customers come up with the product, and products like alcohol would create a prompt which would then have to be overridden by a member of staff. So in answer to your question, there will be floor staff as well.
Okay. Councillors, questions on what's been presented?
Okay.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. The CCTV that's at the front of the shop by the main tills, by the main service, is that a TV monitor or is it a CCTV? Is that a monitor that the person on that station can see everything, or is it just a CCTV camera?
The circles represent the cameras. The monitors will be placed. There's two different sorts of monitors.
Yep.
There are monitors that the cashiers can see from the till. There will also be ones out the back, so that service staff out the back can see it. But then there are also monitors that customers can see to prove to them that they can be seen around the store.
Yep.
But the circles, the act is quite bizarre. It requires that we show where the cameras are rather than where the monitors are, and we like moving the monitors around.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, if you go back to page 20, on point D, the prevention of public nuisance, you've got their staff trained to deal with situations. Could you expand on that, please, for me?
Of course, there is various training within licensing, but also within health and safety and other areas where one has to train staff to deal with obviously fire incidences and things like that, also security, but also confrontation. Confrontation is the biggest problem that retail staff face now, dealing either with people who want to buy something that they're not allowed to buy, cigarettes, alcohol in this instance, or other products, or if somebody comes into the store who is drunk or causing a problem, or just comes into the store and is causing a problem. Confrontation is the biggest thing that shop staff face, and you may know from the press that's been on the TV yesterday, sorry, not the press, from the articles that have been on the TV yesterday and the day before, particularly from the Co-op, they've just announced a huge initiative with regard to shop crime, and we class crime as being when a member of staff is assaulted as much as theft of product. So the staff trained to deal with situations, that is to do with essentially confrontation, how not to get involved in any sort of fracas, to withdraw, not to have one-on-one conflict or anything else. And that's the sort of thing that I'm describing, sir.
The question was with regards in terms of upholding the licensing objectives, that was the prevention of public nuisance. What I need to understand is this training that's going to be provided. Is this external training? Is it a regular basis? In terms of actual practical examples of what people will be trained, because it just says trained to deal with situations, which is open-ended.
No, it's a set training regime that's in place, sir, which I've had some input into and others have as well.
Is this an external training program or is it an internal?
It's delivered internally, if that's the question you're asking, but it's come from external sources, yes. You will know, obviously, that the DPS is responsible for either delivering or overseeing all training, and we take it as being vitally important that the training is done at the site, because there has to be a point of referral if there's an issue with it.
Councillor Kaufman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And following on from your remarks concerning the media at the moment, and on point D, the prevention of public nuisance, and where you've got staff trained to deal with situations, can you tell me, with regard to sort of late night, say from 8 till 11, how many staff that would be on the premises, actually on the shop floor? And given a situation where a gang of lads walks in, how they're going to deal with that? Because it's very important. It's the amount of people you've got on the shop floor to deal with anything like that, and it can happen. It does happen.
Sorry, Councillor Kaufman, that's for the later stage.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I do apologise.
It's more on just on the facts and figures what's been provided. Okay, if that's the questions, we can now move on to Councillor Gardner or Janet Gardner, if you don't want to be presenting as a councillor. Thank you.
I have to declare an interest, as you know, because I literally live out my back garden wall. Behind that is the old vinyl factory site, so I know the area incredibly well. I don't know where to start, really. The boiler house has, you've seen by some of the reports that have been put in, they've been experiencing an incredible amount of antisocial behaviour, and there were 2 houses of ill repute that have been closed down. But it would appear, judging by the conversation I had with the police, that there's another one has opened up in another building, which worries me. As you go down Blythe Road and behind the actual boiler house by the Material Walk, lots of people congregate there. I have got no idea why they congregate there at all, but in the mornings, because I take my dog for a walk, you find alcohol cans, nitrous oxide bottles, dubious cigarette ends, piles of vomit, things like this. Now, this is directly, well, it's right next to the boiler house, and I think now the building's called the Gatefold or the Fizzy building. I'm trying to work out how you can visualise it. Where the premises will be, there are flats above, flats around, flats everywhere else, and the residents are obviously very, very concerned. What people have said to me is that sometimes And some of these people who are in drink have made very, very lewd suggestions to women and when they've been with their children, which the women have got quite upset about. They've come to me. They've also mentioned it to the police. I'm surprised there isn't a representative from the police here, but I do know that the policeman that was dealing with some of the issues had a bereavement, so it might be. I've tried to explain to the residents that I've spoken to that their fears are on presumption, what might happen, but nevertheless they're still very, very worried. They're worried about the opening hours for a start. They've originally, when it was 6 o'clock till midnight, I think, and did it change, didn't it, Mr. Dormer? I did get in contact with you about that. They're still worried that they think 11 o'clock closing is far too late because most of them have to go to work. Lots of them have got children. They're worried about the situation in the whole area. I mean, we're talking about, at the moment, I think there are 400 dwellings are occupied, and they're hoping to have, I think it's about 700 when all the units are built. And the residents that contacted me have said that they're really, really worried about the welfare of the people that they're responsible for. I'm not quite sure. I've spoken to some residents who actually live in Blythe Road as opposed to the materials store. They're also worried because of what they regard as the street drinkers. They also think that there are enough premises that sell alcohol in the area already. I think there's Tesco's Express. There's one in Blythe Road. I don't drink, so I don't know where these places are, but I'm assured they're quite a lot of places. Basically, I mean, this is a section from an email that we'd be very concerned about people buying drinks and consuming in the area, especially at the rear of the building, because we already have littering, noise and general antisocial behaviour. It's all what if, but I can understand where they're coming from because, as I say, as a local resident, I've seen the debris that's left by. I have no idea why these people decide to congregate around this area. I assume it's because they can't be seen, because they're out of the way from, they're hidden away. I think that's all I've got to say, really. I mean, I would like the hours, if you're mindful to agree the licence, I'd like the hours maybe to be from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m, because it then makes the quality of life a little bit better for the people that live above and around it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Gardner. Any questions on what's been presented? No? Okay then. I have none neither. So, okay, we move now on to the discussion stage. Also get... Now, question being that this operation hasn't started yet. There are issues around what Councillor Gardner has just stated. So the question to yourself, Mr. Mitchener, is, once again, you're going to have staff training, how to deal with issues. How will you be communicating your operation with the residents who are around where your premises are?
I'm really sorry, sir. I don't understand the question.
So were there to be issues arising from the business, how would you be, is there some sort of mechanisms that you have which you can engage with the residents?
We don't tend to have issues with local residents. If there's any responses directly to the management, then we would have meetings and, if necessary, residents' forums. But to date, we haven't had problems like that.
In terms of, I understand you're going to have an incident log. So were residents who complain, should there be an issue? Would this then be logged in these incident logs?
Oh, absolutely, and that will be checked at the very least on a weekly basis by the DPS or the manager.
Yeah, the question was raised. I think I'll let Councillor Kaufman ask his question there. Councillor Kaufman.
Chairman, Yeah, going back to what I was saying, and probably remember what I said, but I'll just reiterate it. On where you've got the prevention of nuisance, public nuisance, my concern is not the actual nuisance, but how you're actually going to deal with it. You've got a crowd of guys come into the store. They're obviously up to no good. They probably after sort of taking a few bottles of vodka or whatever. How many staff have you actually got on the shop floor to deal with an incident like that?
We would normally have 2 members of staff on duty.
And would they be both women or men or one of each? Or
No, I don't think so. That question is
that's probably
relevant
not.
to it.
Yeah, okay. But there is a reason behind that, and that is that the staff that are there have got to confront or deal with the situation as it arises. And all right, this is all superficial. That this could happen or it might not happen. But I think you've got to be aware, and just to put staff trained to deal with situations. These are pretty serious situations, and that they're becoming more and more frequent. I mean, it was, as you said, it was on the news last night about this. So my question is, I just need some sort of reassurance that you've got staff there that are able to deal with a situation like that.
You can't have staff to deal with every situation, particularly if a whole group of 10, 15 or 20 lads came in. I don't think there's any store in the country that can deal with that of this particular size. Mm-hmm. But what we do is ensure that we have, by way of risk assessment, and that is really why I was talking about there are other elements besides just licensing. There are risk assessments that we would have to do. You can have 5 people come in causing trouble, whether you sell alcohol or not. They are coming in to cause trouble, perhaps even to rob the store. And it's the risk assessments that assess that. And we are legally bound to do those risk assessments, and the staff are trained around that. We would have panic buttons located behind the till and in other places, so that if there was an issue and staff had felt that they were at risk, either physically or whatever, we would have panic buttons to contact the local. Usually it's through a security company, because you may know the police aren't keen on having direct panic buttons. But the panic button would go then to the security company, and that would then address any contact with the police that was needed. So there's a whole structure of support at differing levels, depending on what was going on.
Thank you. Yes, you've asked my question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If these photographs that have been submitted in your in the packs, or the addition to them, could you explain what they are, please?
Sorry. Yes, sir.
Councillor or Chairman will do, sir. Sir's rather too formal for me.
Certainly, Chair. It was just to give you an idea of the comment had been made that perhaps it was is everybody aware of the CTN, a licensed CTN, confectionery tobacco news agent, which is generally what happens. The smaller stores are CTNs, news agents, that have got alcohol, and that's an anathema to what we're trying to achieve. So we thought we'd provide some photographs of what we're doing with regard to the fresh food, with the bake-off, with the fast food areas, and then an idea of how the alcohol would actually be sold from the fridges, for example, spirits behind the counter where there's a counter, just to give you a better idea of, because at the minute it's just ethereal. And unless you've actually seen a Simply Fresh, you wouldn't know the differentiation between that and an ordinary CTN off licence. So,
is this a sort of true representation of what likely will be in your licensed premises, should the licence be granted?
Oh, indeed, yes.
So, because you did make a comment that you're not an off licence, but looking at the photograph there's quite a significant amount of spirits there, and then obviously you said you're going to have initially to have that one storage display, should I say. So at 1, 2, 3, 4, so 25% of your display would be alcohol. So I would say not just an off license, there is quite a significant amount. Now that counter, is that counter raised?
Sir, may I dispute that?
Well, sorry, you just say my piece first. Is the counter raised? So looking at this photo, sorry, the photos are not numbered. So I'm looking at this photo here. Is that counter raised, sir?
Yes, they are usually.
Right. Okay. Any other questions, councillors? No? Any questions from anybody? Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Can I ask how many years' experience the manager that you're putting into this store has?
No, I'm sorry, that's not part of the remit that we have. It's about how the licence objectives will be upheld. I understand what you're saying, where you're coming from, but the applicants made comments on how they would manage the premises.
With the greatest respect, Chair, we are asking the local residents to have faith that they are going to be in a safe environment. Anybody who has ever worked in that field will know a good manager can diffuse a situation quicker because they've got those years of experience. So that was the question I asked, and I think it's a very valid question, and I'd like an answer.
Very loosely on that point, because I think on the point of prevention of public nuisance, we have heard staff trained to deal with nuisance, but I'll get and understand where Councillor Allen's coming from. If you could answer that, please.
Actually, I can't at the moment because we haven't appointed the manager, because until we've got the licence, we can't finalise the lease, and until we finalise the lease, we can't appoint the manager. I'm really sorry. I would love to answer it. If it helps, I've got 45 years' experience as a licensee.
Councillor Gardner.
One photograph in this patch actually concerns me, which is this one. And my concerns are, you've got several of the cans are on specials, so you can buy 4 cans for £5. I have no idea if that's cheap. Trust me, I've got no idea. But those are the sort of things that draw. If you've got special offers, they draw people in. Is that something that? Sorry, you're shaking.
Through
your
the
head
chair.
like
Through
that.
the chair.
No, I mean that worries me slightly, because it could be a draw for people to come in just to buy the alcohol.
In terms of how it's marketed, once again, it's on our remit, but it's more about how the licensing objectives will be upheld, purely and simply. That's it. Yeah. So once again, I see where you're coming from, but I don't believe that's relevant to this application. Any other questions? Okay. Right. Okay. We now move on to closing remarks. Brief closing remarks from everybody. Now we work in a reverse order, and the applicant will have the final say on that. So, Councillor Gardner.
I think I've said everything that needs saying. I mean, the residents are understandably worried about what could happen, and I would like perhaps if you're mindful to agree, the licensing have the licensing hours changed from 11 o'clock till 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dormer.
Nothing at this stage.
Mr. Mitchener.
Sir, can I come back on the point where I tried to respond with regard to your submission that there was a 25% display of alcohol in the store?
I do apologise. Well, we'll at least because this is the final part. Okay, go on.
I simply cannot agree with you, because I did set out very clearly that the only part where the alcohol will be permanently displayed is if you're looking at the plan landscape. It is only on that right-hand wall above food to go. So that is the fridge, which I've already supplied you a photograph of, and the red wines, and then 2 bays behind the counter. If you look at all the other shelving in store, the area that I've just explained does not represent 25% of the total linear footage of the store. I can count the bays up for you if you wish.
Okay. If you just continue with your closing remarks, please.
So far as the alcohol sales are concerned, shop sales will represent between 12 and 18% of the gross sales. So alcohol sales will represent between 12 and 18% of the gross sales of the shop. That's the normal configuration of sales within store, if that assists in any way. I'm sorry that I wasn't allowed to address the individual representations made, because I would rebut each one in detail. I'm not sure where I would be allowed to do that. If you're only requiring me now to do a summary, my summary would be that the Act is clear that we should be guided by the police and your officers with regard to representations, and indeed in your own bundle at page 5, at paragraph 9.43, it states that the authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified, being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to what it is intended to achieve. At 9.42, it says the licensing authorities are best placed to determine what actions are appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives in their areas. All licensing determinations should be considered on a case-by-case basis, and they should take into account any representations. So, the police and your own officers have made no representation about this application at all. And 9.12 of the guidelines is extremely important in this regard. The Licensing Act, in many ways, is a flawed device, but it's what we've got and we have to deal with it. And as I've mentioned previously, the case of Thwaites at paragraph 55 and 63 is also extremely relevant, in that we should deal with this matter based not on what we know or feel or even want to do, but rather with exactly what is before us today. An application for the sale of alcohol for very specific hours, in line with your policy, with no evidence against the application, as there is none, for the hours sought. Nothing has been raised about the current operation at the site at all, because patently there couldn't be, because there is no operation there. But we've explained in detail how we would address the details or any issues that would arise. We would ask that the application for the licence be granted as applied for, in the hours as they've been applied for. I would just comment that nothing has been said with regard to early morning in any event, or the representations made about late night, which is after 11 o'clock in our view. So we would ask that the application for the licence be granted as applied for, and should any difficulties actually arise, it should be by way of review that they are dealt with in the future, rather than the licence being limited now on the basis of what may happen in the future. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. We will now retire to deliberate. So if you'd like to take all your bits and pieces with you, sir, and then we'll call you when we made our decision. Thank you.